Hello everyone. Today I want to show you a game from the 2014 Karpos Open between Grandmaster from Bulgaria, Georgiev, the longtime Bulgarian number one player, who actually took over the number one spot from Ivan Radulov many years ago and was the Bulgaria's number one chess player until one Veselin Topalov uh, took over that spot. But still a very strong grandmaster, 52 years old. Uh, an interesting fact about him is that he at one time held the world record for simultaneous games. He had played 360 games simultaneously over 14 hours, scoring 280 wins, 6 defeats, and 74 draws. And with the black pieces, uh, actually another thing about Kirill Georgiev also is that he came to prominence internationally in 1980 when he defeated the young Garry Kasparov at the Malta Olympiad. And this was 5 years before Georgiev became a grandmaster. He became one in 1985. Now, moving on to the black pieces is his young opponent, who is now 26 years old, around 23 at the time of the game, Andrei-Vovk from the Ukraine. And this this Karpos Open uh, takes place once a year, and it's one of 10 municipalities that make up the city of Skopje, which is the capital of the Republic of Macedonia. So there you go. There's your introduction to the players and a brief geography lesson. And yes, Macedonia has a population of approximately 60,000 people. Now, to this position at hand. Now, Black has done a good job. It's Black's move right now. Black has done a good job so far equalizing. As you may have guessed, this position, or this structure rather, comes from a Dutch defense. And the Dutch defense, the Leningrad variation in particular, uh, leaves Black vulnerable on the king side. This is why many grandmasters will shy away from the Dutch as a main weapon. It's often used as a secondary opening. And you can see right here how the bishops, the dark square bishops that is, have been exchanged off. And so the diagonal all the way from A1 to H8 is just wide open with the black king sitting there on G8. You can also see from C4 to G8, that diagonal is also open. And so although it's late in the middle game, right? The heavy pieces are still on the board. There's still some danger for the uh, black king to get in trouble, to be checkmated. And even if the black king is not checkmated, the fact that the king is so exposed, uh, it makes black vulnerable to tactics, which could easily cause black to drop a pawn via a double attack because of the exposed nature of the king. And so the Dutch defense can be very risky because of this alone. So even though you might not get checkmated, early, so you weather the storm, right? Still, even going into the late middle game, Black still has to be wary. And as you can see here, the king is very exposed. A lot of open squares. The bishops are gone. So there's no protection for Black on the dark squares. And the light squares are also wide open. So the only pieces that can cover those squares are the queens, the rooks, the knights. Basically, Black and white, for that matter, have to cover their respective weak squares with their pieces. Now, white, although white is weak around the light squares, he has a little bit more shelter on the dark squares for his king. He has good compensation for the lack of his dark squared bishop around his king. Notice the pawn H2, G3, F2, and E3 all on the dark square. That pawn chain all on the dark squares. So that gives the black king the white king adequate protection on the dark squares. And the light squares covered, the light square on F3 rather is covered by the knight. So although it's possible that white could be subject to a pin, at least his king is not immediately exposed. So if you were measuring king safety, you would definitely have to give the nod to white, as his king is a little bit more safe than black's. Nevertheless, here, um, black is pretty, with the dangers that I've mentioned, right? It's black to move, and he just has to be careful and mindful of those potential pitfalls here. Okay, so for example, with the move a5, okay, and let's say play continues h4, rook d7, say h5 again, trying to open up another front uh, on the king side. Queen f6, queen c4, and let's say g5. So the position is equal. Okay, so again, black has equalized, but he still has to be careful. He has to have his antennas up. Another option instead of a5 is a6 with similar play. h4, queen f6, h5. Notice just keeping that knight posted there, because the knight on d5 actually does a good job in blocking the vulnerable light squares for black. Kind of like the knight on f3 is doing for white. Shields the king. Right? g5, again keeping the position closed. And although it looks scary uh, on those diagonals, as long as black organizes his pieces correctly, there's no way to really exploit that. Notice how the queen is on f6 guarding the dark square. Okay, so it's like when your bishops are gone, you have to use other pieces to pick up. So the queen here for the black queen on f6 covers the absent dark square bishop, right? To the best of its abilities, and uh, the knight blocks that weak light square diagonal on from c4 to f7, leading to the king. Okay. Okay. So that gives you basically the gist of what black should be doing in the position, understanding the pitfalls of the position and kind of playing accordingly. Okay, black can't really undertake too much, and white can't undertake too much. But black just faces more danger, mainly because of the exposed nature of the king. So in this position, after rook fd1, so in this position, after white played move rook fd1, black decides that he wants to just try to trade down everything and going to a pure ending. And this is logical also because again, you realize that with these diagonals open and this open d file, that your king can come under fire. So why not just trade pieces? So good idea. So it does play along with the spirit of what you're trying to do. However, tactics are king. So you have to make sure that the idea conforms to the tactical rules of chess. So here, Vovk plays the move knight c7, right? Initiating a trade of rooks. The rook takes. So strategically, this is fantastic. But does it hold up to the tactical test? So we see now that the danger is somewhat lessened as far as getting checkmated right away. The rooks have come off the board. All right, but however, after the trade of rooks, this gives white a little bit of initiative, and now the experienced Grandmaster Georgiev makes a good move here. Queen c5, provoking weakness in the black position, attacking the a7 pawn. All right, so a6, and now queen b4, attacking b7, b5. All right, more provocative play. Now, I don't know if these players were entering time trouble or not. Georgiev plays this move queen a5. Queen c5 was good also, pressuring the c pawn. But the additional idea is to penetrate with this move queen b8. I'm sorry, queen b6. So Vovk plays queen b8 to stop queen b6. What this does is now it decentralizes the queen. Okay. So for example, if Vovk tried to play queen d6 and tries to keep the queen in the middle of the board, then queen b6, and now the king g7, and knight d4, and the c pawn uh, will drop even after queen d4 check, d5 check. So black has to be very careful. So queen b8, and now here Georgiev could have played queen c3 here with this idea of attacking c5. So for instance, queen c3, let's say queen e8 protecting the pawn, and queen c5 putting pressure on the pawn and basically setting up the same threats of coming in here, but just albeit a different way. So for example, queen e4, queen b6. However, Kirill chose a different way and played the move h4, general move in these type of positions. Sometimes this move h5 can be very annoying. At the right time, you cause this kind of pawn structure, a sacrifice, and you just leave the pawns like that. You're not even concerned about recapturing the pawn, but just to blast open lines. If black doesn't take, oftentimes the white player will push. Of course, this is all based on tactical soundness, but the white player will push and just have this threat constantly in the air, whereby it takes away a square from the king, a possible escape square, and black always has to worry about being mated. Vovk plays the move c5, and now queen d2, and this is good for white as he centralizes his queen. And this control over the d file is very important. Queen f8 now, and queen d7, and this position is almost winning for white here. Right, he's attacking the knight. The knight moves, then the check is possible, and also you have threats of the knight coming in to white knight coming into g5. Again, this is all based on those weak diagonals that black has. Of course, black. Let's just make a bad move for white. Let's just trade queens. If black is able to pull that off, I mean, he's practically winning here because of this 3-2 majority on the queen side. I mean, he has good chances to win. I'm not gonna say he's practically winning. That's too strong, but he has good chances, right? That the evaluation just flips if the queens are off the board. However, in this situation, you keep the queens on the board because of the weaknesses around the king. Queen c8 check, knight e8, and now knight g5 from Georgiev, just putting a lot of pressure on black. Queen e7, keeping an eye on the c5 pawn. Knight e6, attacking the pawn again. Push c4, b takes c4, b takes c4, queen takes c4, and now white extracts a pawn from black, is attacking a6 and threatening a discover check. Queen b7 check, king g1, knight d6. So now black starts fighting back, although black is objectively lost here. Queen d4, again, setting up mate possibilities if the queen decides to leave the 7th rank. Knight e4, a4, and these players probably were in time trouble at this time, for several errors were made. Georgiev played the move queen c4, setting up this discovery again. Here was an excellent time for the move I was talking about. These type of moves are usually very disruptive to the opponent. So for example, if G takes H5 here, then just Queen D8. Let's say King F7, Knight D4. Let's throw a check in there. Queen B1, King G2, Knight D2, and the black king is just in all types of trouble. There's no way to escape the checks. White could, of course, have perpetual practically any time, but of course he would just win and just pick up all these loose pawns here. Yes. All right, so it's just too much. So back to the game. Instead of H5, which would have probably just blew it open, Queen C4 is played. Knight D2, and so black is trying to find counter chances. Queen D3 and Knight F3, and miraculously this gives the opportunity that black was looking for to counterattack. Remember, I was talking about how white had a weakness on the diagonal, how his dark squares were protected, but this knight here was protecting the king from any assault on the light squares. Well, now that knight is gone, and black exploits this opportunity and now attacks white on the light squares where he is weak also. This position right here is actually a draw, but I'm sure these players were in time trouble at this point. Knight F3, King F1, Knight H2, and the players could shake hands. Queen F3, and this is just a drawn position. However, like I said, these players were probably blitzing, and with exposed kings, right? It's easy to make a mistake. Now both kings are exposed. All right. Right here, either move like Knight G5 or Knight F4. Again, continues the checking extravaganza. Queen E1 or move like Queen takes G3, and black or white could draw because of the exposed nature of the kings. However, Georgiev with the white pieces decides to go for it. He takes a chance here. He plays a move Queen D6, threatening mate. Right here on Queen F8, on F8. This gives black the upper hand. So it's a gamble. He took. He might have had. He might have had Vovk. Down on time. His guy might have had seconds on his clock, and he just went for like the quick swindle. So Queen takes E3 was played. King C4, and now a simple move like Knight D2. Knight D2 check, and the king starts getting in a little trouble here. Let's say King B5. Queen E2 check. The idea is to keep the party going with these checks. Don't give up on the checks. Queen A6 and then trade the queens off. Remember, black is going to be winning if he could do that. And King D5 and then you just trade the queens and black is just winning. But even if I'm down, in time, that's all I'm thinking of is I know I got to keep the checks going no matter what. Knight D2 and try to get those queens off. And of course, black is winning here. However, as fate would have it, after King C4, instead of playing the move Knight D2, Vovk knew he had to keep the checks going, but he found a different check and decided to check with the queen, which is very natural, right? Especially when you're in time trouble, you want to check with the strongest piece, right? It's like a natural thing, like I'll just move the queen. That has to be good. So he plays Queen E4, but then after King B5, how do you keep everything going? Right? There's no good checks. For example, here, and you just drop this pawn right here. Queen E7, King B4, Okay, queen b7, and then king a3. You just tuck the queen. You just tuck the king away. So again, these players probably were in severe time pressure. But in other words, Vovk spots that he doesn't really have any decent checks to continue here. Same thing. Queen b1 is met by king takes a5. Another opportunity here. Again, all of these checks wind up dropping this pawn. So he decides to play this move, king f7, attacking this knight. Very risky move. And Georgiev plays knight d8. Again, this is a dead draw by Perpetual. King e8, knight c6. And at this point, it's better to try to get a draw instead of getting mated. And here, Vovk again probably in severe time trouble. Miscalculates and plays the move f4. G takes f4, and now he plays this move queen f5 check. That was the idea behind f4 is to get this good check in there. Check. King b6, and now he plays this move. Horrible blunder. h5, and is mated. The queen e7 mate. At this point, there's really nothing he could do at this time. Now it is Black who was busted in this position, even at the king f7. But again, as I said, these players were probably under severe time pressure and just blissing out. That's how you allow mate in one like that. So, but again, going back to our start position, right here after rook fd1, it's very important in the, in these type of positions to recognize the pros and cons of the position. All right, and in this position, the Grandmaster Vovk accurately assessed, the dangers, and he picked the play. He just was just tactically flawed and allowed White to put a lot of pressure in the position. So before trading the rooks, he should have just prepared the position a little more first before playing this move, knight c7. So I hope that video was educational for you, and I hope you learned a little bit about the risk inherent in playing the Leningrad variation of the Dutch defense. So I hope to see you soon. Please like and subscribe and comment, and I'll see you on the next video.